Hello and welcome to Practical Christian Lessons. I'm Joshua Pearsall, and today we're talking about the Baal cycle from the Canaanite religion. Let's get into it. So if you are new here, welcome to Practical Christian Lessons. We do a lot of different things here: history, theology, apologetics. Today is a bit of all three, and we do lots of other stuff here. Check out our videos, our playlist. You'll see a bunch of that stuff. Today we are wrapping up our, at least for now, we'll probably return to it again at some point, series that I've labeled Why the Bible and Not the Baal Cycle, or Baal, however you wish to say it. And I think it's fitting to end on an essay relating directly to that, and that is in the Ugaritic text, the Ugarit text here, as that is one of the things that inspired the name for the channel among a friend suggesting a name very similar to that, and I took that and ran with it. It may have been that exact name, I'm not sure. And the point of this series has been to go through the theology of the Old Testament, in this case through the essays here in the Zondervan Archaeological Study Bible. It's important you get the Archaeological if you wish to get this Bible. It's out of print, so it will be a bit pricey. But if you get the Archaeology Bible, that is a different Bible. This is the Archaeological one. And comparing, right, the theology being laid out in the Old Testament, including at times when the Hebrews and Israelites stray from that theology and become more like their neighbors, and saying, where does this theology come from? It is very different. It is clearly not just a development of the ideas of their neighbors. It's not the natural evolution. However, someone wishes to argue that. So let them make that case. One thing I finally pulled out of my closet. This series has been inspired by John Oswalt's The Bible Among the Myths. If you want a much lengthier and far more academic expedition into what this entire playlist has been about, it shows up at the end of the video, so if you want to watch the entire series, check that out. Get this book. It's very cheap. You can get this. I got this used. You can tell it's rather beat up on thrift books for, I think, $5. 5 to 7. You can get it for very cheap. I recommend getting that if you are interested in delving deeper into this topic. And for us as Christians, it has been hopefully a very good apologetic tool to delve into these kind of conversations and have with friends and those inquiring into the faith. And for those inquiring or skeptical, this is a challenge and an invitation as well, being like, can you answer this? If not, maybe then Christianity is the way for you. So with that, with some bittersweet tones, let's get into this essay on the tablets from Ugarit and the Canaanite religion. This essay is found in Joshua 1, a fitting book is my name to end on. This is page 304. The land Joshua was commanded by God to enter was that of the Canaanites. Although the Old Testament provides us with some information concerning these non-Israelite people and their religion, we gain much of our knowledge from the writings of a people not far removed from the Canaanites themselves. Ugarit, a city in northern Syria. They reference a map here. Most of your study Bibles will probably have a map, or you can Google it. Has yielded a huge archive of tablets dating from approximately 1400 BC. Though not located in Canaan proper, Ugarit, modern-day Ras Shamra, shared many close cultural ties with the Canaanites, including a similar religious system and language. The language in which the tablets from Ugarit were written is now simply called Ugaritic. It is closely related to Hebrew and is of great value in helping scholars to better understand ancient Hebrew. These tablets include text of various kinds and incorporate a great number of mythological and ritual religious elements. The deities they mention constitute the pantheon, or a list of officially recognized gods of Ugarit and the Canaanite people. The highest deity was El, the aged father god. His consort or partner was Atharat, a sea goddess also known in the Old Testament as Asherah. The principal player in the major mythological text from Ugarit is Baal or Baal, possibly El's grandson, the mighty storm god and fertility deity who figures so prominently in many of the Old Testament historical and prophetic books. In the battles depicted in the Baal cycle, this notorious god defeated the deities Yam, the sea, and Mot, death. His consorts were Anat, a warrior goddess, who was also his wife's sister, and Astarte. Other features of Canaanite religion attested at Ugarit include animal sacrifices, seasonal festivals, and belief in an afterlife. child sacrifice, a recurring motif of Canaanite religion in the Old Testament, is not mentioned in Ugaritic text, which is odd because it is a common feature, and we have many ancient texts that show that not just in their culture, but in other cultures around them. But that is odd, it's not there. And that is that essay. Something I will be doing, I haven't done in a bit in this series, I did link it in one of our Levitic videos going over the Leviticus sacrificial system, is Disciple Dojo, is another channel here on YouTube. He's a fellow Methodist. He makes tons of great stuff. I'll probably link his video here. And he has read through the Ugaritic cycle and had some commentary on it as well. I will link that because, of course, that's the text we're talking about, but it's also important for sort of looking at how the Old Testament works. And a lot of that stems from a very polemical use of it. You know, some people will say that, oh, clearly they're just copying from their neighbors. You hear that with the Genesis account, which we cover, I think, in the first video in this series. Either the first or close to the first, maybe first 2 or 3. We cover the creation account in the flood narrative and point out that, no, it's not just a copying. There's something else going on here. And as a lot of us would argue, there's a very intentional polemical use of these Old Testament images. It mentions his mot. One of the sort of prayers or rituals or liturgies, however you want to call it, around mot is there's very similar language in one of the Psalms. And we'd argue that one of the reasons that's happening is to show that death is not deity. Death is in submission to the God Most High. And that death is not this thing to be feared of, as the Lord has control over it. Right? There are ways in which the Old Testament uses the imagery around it, and we'd say that's coming from God as the divine author saying through his prophets, here is what you believe. Here is the El of your pantheon. Here's the truth. I am El. I am the God Most High. There are no other gods. Things like this, taking imagery they understand. The cloud rider, as it pops up in the Psalms and again in Daniel 7. Things like this happens all over the place. And that's a very important way to understand how these images pop up in the Old Testament. And one of the best ways, either as a skeptic or a Christian, to see this is simply to read those texts yourself. Don't just listen to me on, defending against it, or someone levying the claim that, oh, they're just copying. Go and read the stories for yourself and then compare the differences. Sit them side by side. I do that in a few of these in a very simplistic way, going through sort of a big overview of these stories. But if you really want to delve into them, go read the original story. That's something I can't recommend enough. And you'll find some very interesting similarities and some very stark differences. And I think just supports my claim that I've made throughout the series. And Disciple Dojo, thankfully, has done one on the Ugaritic cycle. You can go and listen to now and get some additional commentary. And he goes through a lot of those parallels, both in comparison and contrasting. So go and check those out. And that is my closing exhortation in this series. I have greatly enjoyed this. I hope to return to this again at some point. And again, if you want to delve into this topic further, go read those primary sources yourself and get John Oswalt's book. This is a wonderful book. And he's still alive. He's still teaching today. You can email him. It doesn't mean he'll answer, but you can email him. I believe he works for Asbury Theological Seminary. At least some of the time. That is the seminary I go to. I've reached out to him before, and that doesn't mean he's free all the time. If you want to get a little bit of his taste from him, he does have a YouTube channel that hasn't uploaded anything in a while, but has a lot of old sermons and lessons, and he's recently done an interview on Plain Spoken Podcast that you can go and listen to and get a bit of a taste. It's not exactly on this topic, but he does he does speak his mind, he does speak his theology. You can get a feel for him there. And he does speak on the subject of this book in a few of the lectures up on YouTube that you can find. If you just Google his name, John Oswalt, The Bible Among the Myth, in the YouTube search bar, you'll find some stuff there. So that is where I'm going to end this. This has been a pleasure. If you haven't seen the whole series, go back to the beginning and watch it through. You won't regret it. You guys have a wonderful day. God bless.